give this video a thumbs up, subscribe and press the notification bell if you haven't done it so far. Hey guys, my name is Leila Ataya. Welcome to my channel. I'm really glad to see you all here because today we have a special edition Valentine's Day video. I will teach you how to draw a floating heart only with the use of graphite pencil and a piece of paper. And if you decide to follow along, you will be able to create a beautiful present for someone special, or you can always turn your drawing into a Valentine's Day card. Before we get to our main project though, I will show you a few really simple steps and tips on how to draw a perfect love heart of any shape and any size. It will make it so easy for you to draw even if you struggled with symmetry. You probably have seen online this trick where to draw a really cool love heart you need to do 2 circles, triangle, and then trace them. And so you get a really cool heart. That is a really cool trick. But the one problem that I do have with it is that you're stuck with that shape. And what if you want your heart to look a bit different? You know, what if you want it to be wider or narrower, longer or rounder? You can't really get away from this. So I will show you a really cool way to draw a heart. And even if you're a real beginner, it can be really easy and you can still really balance it out and make it very symmetrical. So first we can draw a circle. Now if you have trouble drawing circles, you can always use something to trace. So for example, you can use a lid from a bottle of some sort, or maybe you can use a coin, or if you want a larger circle, you can always trace, for example, a cup or even a plate. So next we are going to put a center line. Again, if you need to, you can use a ruler. If you can't do it freehand, it'll be quicker. So up to you. Once you've got this is your basic shape. You need to start shaping it into the heart. One thing that I do want to remind you is that working at the same time on both sides will make this process easier rather than completing one and then the other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a couple of lines here that almost sort of a shape a little triangle, and then draw it there. And now I'm just going to shape this circle into a heart. So all I need to do is just smoothly carry this line without any breaks into the other, and then I'm using the shape of the circle to shape this. Now we can erase these lines and you've got your rounded heart. And remember, you can always make this a little bit deeper and this a little bit deeper. That is already up to you. What if you would like to have a heart that is a little bit more elongated? So let's do this one. And for this one, we would need to do an oval rather than a circle. And again, the longer your oval would be, the more elongated your heart shape will be as well. Again, we'll put a central line through. And very similar thing. And now we just shape. See here, I'm just adding a little bit on there and cutting it off in there. Now if I erase these helping lines, then I've got a more elongated heart. And again, you can always tweak it and add other things to it. You know, maybe you want to make it longer, maybe you want to make it shorter and so on. Now what if you would like to have a shape that is quite wide, for example? Then you will do very similar thing that we did there, but we're going to reverse it. So you can draw an oval this way. Remember, you can always trace these shapes. You just need to find something that fits your size. Put a central line. We do our adjustments. and there we've got a completely different heart shape. Now, what if you would like to have a heart shape that's a little bit edgier, for example? Then rather than using an oval, you can use a triangle. Again, you can use a ruler for this, or you can sketch it freehand, and you put a central line. And there, you've got a much sharper, more defined heart. And you can get it really balanced and very symmetrical. You can use even a thinner, more elongated triangle to create that sort of a almost witchy kind of a look. So you can have your narrower triangle. Always remember to put the central line. And let's get rid of the have a look at all these different shapes that we have created, and it was quite easy to get them balanced because we used a simplified geometrical shape first, and we also put a central line as well. If you would like to see how to draw other things in that sort of a simple way, things like fruits and other objects, I do have a video on that, so please make sure to watch it. I will leave the link down below. So now what I would like you to do is I would like you to choose your shape that you would like to have on your project, and we can go with that. Before we get into our main project, I would like to remind you to give this video a thumbs up if you're liking it, subscribe, and please check out my Patreon page as well, because I do extra videos for Patreon that are not shown here on YouTube. If you're following along, I hope you had a chance to grab a nice piece of paper that you can later turn into a card, for example, for your loved one, or you can always keep it as a little picture and put it in a frame and give that as a gift, which I think can be a really sweet idea. So let's start. I would like to make my heart sort of a more on the wider side. So I'm drawing an oval, and then I'm going to put a central line. And you see how I'm barely touching the paper. I am not pressing on the pencil too hard, because later on we would need to erase these lines, and by not pressing too hard, you're pretty much making that job of rubbing things out much easier for yourself. Okay, so now I've got that done. I'm going to erase the helping lines. So I'm going to start with a 6B pencil. Don't worry too much about which pencils you're using, but if you want to get it quite nice and dark, you know, with all the shadows, you would want to use something a little bit more on the softer side, like 6B or 8B, 9B, you know, that sort of a range. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put highlights. I'm just going to gently mark them through. Okay, so we're just imagining that the light is falling from that sort of a side, and I'm going to start shading. Now I'm going to go without the cross hatching or anything like this. I'm just going to try and blend things and make this as contrasted as possible with using darker pencils. So first, I am not pressing too hard. And I'm just shading everything through. So I'm just covering everything with pretty much same shade, more or less. Now I'm going to use a smudge stick. Now you don't need to worry about it looking perfect. You just want to pre-smudge that first layer just to make the job a little bit easier for when you go with more layers over it. Now Now don't worry about making it all perfect. You see, if it's looking a little bit patchy at this stage, don't worry about it. We're just pre-smudging it to make it a bit easier for us to work in the future. So now I'm carrying on with the same pencil, and what I'm doing is I'm darkening some areas because I want this heart to be really smoothly blended. I'm now pretty much just going back and forth with my pencil. Now this side here, this part here would be probably receiving the most of the shadow. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going over and over that darker area so that I can blend things in a little bit nicer. Now I'm going to go in again with my smudge stick. I'm going to go over with the rubber and tidy things up a little bit. Probably better to use this one. I'm going to go with a 9B pencil. It's good to go for something quite dark, so you can grab the darkest pencil you've got. If it is 6B, just keep going with that. But because I do have a softer pencil, I can get away with just getting it a little bit darker. So now I'm creating even more shape by just shading a little bit more on the side. Again, for more blending. Now I'm going in the opposite direction. And this side, because the light's coming from there, so we're going to be shadow from there. So far we have been only applying shadow. Now we can start removing, so adding a little bit more light to some areas. And I would like to start on this side. So I'm using my patty rubber. If you haven't seen my tutorial on drawing materials, graphite drawing materials, please watch that. I explain different things about erasers and pencil, drawing papers. And by the way, this is a very smooth drawing paper. It's almost shiny. Whenever you're using a patty rubber, always make sure to reshape it. Otherwise, you will be carrying whatever charcoal you've just collected from the side onto another one, which could be lighter. So once you're done with one area, reshape it to avoid these problems. Oh, and some time ago, someone in the comments asked me how to get rid of charcoal or graphite that's that's stuck in the rubber. In reality, you can't really get rid of it because you sort of squish it and you pretty much mix whatever it picked up from your drawing into the rubber. And that's why if you, for example, using one with charcoals, you probably would use it for, I don't know how many drawings, maybe 10 drawings or 20 drawings, depending on how much you use it, and then just check it out and get a new one. You can't clean them. Not with these rubbers, it doesn't work. Okay, so this is really getting there. And now I just want to blend it a little bit, just around the highlight. Because I'm not working from life, I'm pretty much making it up as I go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this side just a little bit sharper and that side a bit blurrier. Now very carefully, see I'm just doing it in one direction. Okay, so now it's just time to tidy things up, and what I mean by that is, you know, go around the edges, erase some stuff or apply more graphite. I still feel like I need to darken it a bit more, just a tiny bit more before we move on to the shadow, and I'm just using a thick graphite pencil. Now, because we're drawing it on a really light background, I would like to use my putty rubber to create a little bit of this reflective sort of a surface that would be reflecting, you know, the light that's just around. I'm just going to gently pick a bit of that graphite off that side. And now I'm going to use this little eraser. You can use something like this as well. Just make sure you cut the little bit off to make the edge very nice and sharp. Again, you can see it in the graphite material videos. I sort of talk a little bit more in depth on that. So here we've got a little bit of a reflection going on. A little something about the shadows. For example, when you have an object lying on paper or table or anything like this, you do get a shadow, but you get the shadow that's pretty much like you'd say touching the object, really, you know, the falling shadow. But if you pick that object up and you lift it higher and higher and higher, you see the space between the shadow and your object. And also you see how the shadow changes as well. You see how soft it is now. So if we've got it like this, we've got, well, not sharp edges, but much sharper and much stronger than if we do this. So if we want to draw a floating heart, we need to leave some space. So rather than just doing a little bit of shadow here, which will make it look like the heart is lying down on the paper, if we want to make it a floating heart, then I would suggest that we move away a little bit and we pretty much just really softly. So remember, finger down, you've got a dark shadow, up you've got a really soft shadow. So we can create a really soft shadow with a bit of a distance going. Now, one more thing, if you want to, if it's quite hard for you to just measure things by eye, what you can do is you can use your pencil, because the shadow will be just a little bit sort of a hazy. It's not going to be the same as the actual heart, but it is quite good to know where you're going. So for example, I would want to do it actually there. So what I'll do is I'm gonna grab a pencil and I'm just gonna put a little dot here and a little dot there. So I know this is pretty much where the heart is going you know, I don't want to make it much bigger. I'll just sort of blend it within those lines. And the same thing can go for this as well. So you just make sure that the tip of your pencil is on the top, and then this is on the bottom, and you've got your heart there. So we've got it there and then there. Remember, this is all very, very approximate, so you don't want to really, you know, feel like, oh my goodness, I need to get it all perfect. So I'm even using just whatever's graphite on the smudge stick there, but you can just use a pencil for that if you want. So very, very softly I'm going to sketch out another heart. But you see how I'm going, I'm barely touching the paper. You probably can't even see it very well on the camera, but you don't want it really dark, because you know, you might need to erase it or move it, or you know, whatever it is that you'd want to do. So now I'm going to blend it out in a really, really soft way, and I'm going to soften the edges. See, I'm making edges really, really blurry, almost like as if you're drawing a cloud. And also this position is because we've got light going from this direction, so if we were to create lines, we would get it like this. So the light is falling this way, and then that's how we're getting the shadow on it. Now you want to get the color quite flat. You know how here we've been doing it a little bit darker here, lighter there, because now we're doing just a shadow. You don't really want to create highlights and shadows on here. It is a shadow already, so you just need to create this really flat color. Okay, now it's time to tidy up the shadow a little bit. If your edges become too rough, you can always smudge it out later with a smudge stick again, but we do want the shape of the shadow to be very similar to the shape of the actual heart, otherwise it'll just look like there's another heart out there floating about. I'm going to turn it upside down so that it's easier for me to work on this side. And now I'm going to soften the edge again. And remember, if you're a beginner and it's quite hard for you to get the heart shape similar to this one, you can go through all the same stages of doing an oval, a central line, and so on. Okay, so I think we've got the color pretty even, just a little bit darker there. And yeah. Okay, so now that we're finished with the shadow, it's time to sort of tweak our heart a little bit, the first heart that we drew, the actual one, to get it to perfection. Okay, so I'm just going to turn this around and I'm going to play a little bit with its shape. So I'm just going to perfect the edges a little bit more, just to make sure that they're really nice and crisp, and that we've got enough contrast between the paper and the shadows. See, there's a little bit wonky here, maybe darken. So I'm using a mechanical pencil, but you can just use your normal pencil. Just make sure it's nice and sharp for little details like this. And you might want to add a little bit of your own flair to it, like you can give it an arrow, for example. Just make sure if you put it in here, you need to add a bit in the shadow as well. Or you might want to do a little patch on the heart, or perhaps you'd like to tell a story to whoever you're giving this. That's why symbolism has always been quite a popular thing in art, because you know, you'd say if you look at the Dutch paintings of still lifes, you see, you know, a whole bunch of fruit, you know, cups and things, and a skull and a book, and all that just looks like just random objects that were put in place. But in reality, there's a specific theme that goes through that painting that the artist is trying to convey to the viewer. And for example, there's a peach with a little wormhole in it, and that just means that life is, you know, fragile, and everything has got a time ticking on it, and things like that. So you might see a little something and think, oh, why'd they put that in there, like a dry flower? But there's like a whole story, and if you look at every detail, it'll tell you these crazy things about, you know, either life of that time, or maybe even a story of the person who's a patron who's commissioning that artwork. Okay, so you can say that this is done, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit with the highlights a bit more, but you can stop at this stage. Now what I want to do is I want to just give it, you know, that sort of a window. Window highlight. I'm just going really gently. So again, this perhaps could be a suggestion of something if you are interested in that storytelling through art. Oh dear, I think it's done now. I just want to hold it up so that the light does not bounce off it too much, because it is graphite, and graphite does reflect a lot of light back. So at this stage you can sign it and put it in a little frame, or you can fold your piece of paper and turn it into a card. And I think whoever you will give this to would be a very, very special kind of a gift. I hope you like this video, and I hope you make a really good use of it. And even if you feel like, well, I don't really have anyone special this Valentine's Day to give this to, well, you will still enjoy and relax while you're drawing. You will get to up your drawing skill. And at the end, you know what? Give it away. You can give this away to someone that maybe you like. And you never know what can happen once they see your creative side. Anyway, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and press the notification bell if you haven't done it so far.